How do you react when others criticize you? Take a moment and think about it. Do you feel your chest tighten, your mind rushing to defend itself, words rising in anger or excuses forming before the other person has even finished speaking? Or maybe you shrink back, feeling wounded, ashamed, or small, as if their words were a final verdict on who you are. These reactions are deeply human. We all know them. But have you ever considered that criticism does not have to be your enemy? That instead, it might be a teacher? The Stoics believed exactly this. They taught that the judgments of others, the opinions that sting us or weigh heavily on our minds, can actually serve as tools for growth. But to unlock their value, we must learn to see them differently. The Stoic shift is not about rejecting criticism nor blindly accepting it. It is about transforming our relationship with it. Where most people see an attack, Stoicism sees an opportunity. Where many of us feel crushed, Stoicism invites us to grow stronger. Let's start with the foundation. According to Epictetus, one of the great Stoic teachers, life is divided into two categories: what is within our control and what is not. Other people's opinions fall firmly into the second category. We cannot dictate what others will think of us, nor can we silence the voices that might judge, mock, or question our actions. What we can control, however, is how we respond. That is the first key lesson. Criticism itself is not the wound. Our interpretation of it, the meaning we attach to it, is what gives it power. Think of it this way. If someone calls you foolish, does the insult itself harm you? Not really. It is only when you accept the insult, when you allow it to settle inside your mind as truth, that pain takes root. Seneca, another great Stoic, reminded us that insults have no real power unless we choose to be offended. Words are simply air passing through lips. The weight we feel comes from within, not from without. This shift in perspective allows us to see criticism not as an immovable judgment, but as feedback, signals from the world around us. Sometimes they reflect reality, pointing out blind spots in our behavior, flaws we had overlooked, or areas where growth is possible. Other times they reveal more about the critic than about us, their envy, their bitterness, their limited understanding. But in both cases, criticism can serve us either by teaching us about ourselves or by teaching us the art of indifference. So imagine for a moment that every critical word you hear is a mirror. Not a mirror that defines you, but one that reflects back something for you to examine. Some reflections might be distorted, others might be clear. Some might show a truth you were unwilling to face, others might show nothing at all. But the mirror remains a chance to practice the Stoic art of discernment. You are not the reflection. You are the one looking into it. In this way, the Stoics invite us to approach criticism not with fear or hostility, but with curiosity. Instead of asking, "How dare they say this about me?" we ask, "What can I learn here? What does this reveal about me, or about them, or about the world we share?" When we hold criticism this way, it loses its poison. It no longer has the power to define our worth. It becomes material for practice, a stepping stone on the path to wisdom. Criticism, then, is neither a curse nor a final judgment. It is a part of life, woven into the fabric of human interaction, unavoidable yet useful. When we learn to view it through the lens of Stoic philosophy, we discover that it can shape us, strengthen us, and even free us from the burden of other people's opinions. It is no longer an enemy to avoid, but a teacher to learn from. Yet, like any teacher, not all lessons are of equal value. Some are grounded in truth and wisdom, while others are little more than noise. To walk the Stoic path, we must learn to distinguish between useful criticism and useless criticism, and to meet both with the same steady composure. Useful criticism is the kind that reveals something real, something hidden from our own eyes. It may sting, but it highlights areas where we can grow. It forces us to confront blind spots or weaknesses we would rather ignore. A friend who tells you that you are neglecting your health, a mentor who challenges you to refine your skills, or even a stranger who points out a careless mistake. All of these voices, though uncomfortable, offer the gift of clarity. When we are wise enough to listen, such criticism becomes a tool for self-improvement. Useless criticism, however, springs from ignorance, envy, or mere emotional outburst. It is the angry driver shouting insults in traffic, the anonymous comment meant only to provoke, the bitter words of someone projecting their own frustration onto you. Such criticism carries no wisdom within it. To treat it as truth is to waste your energy on shadows. And yet, even here, Stoicism teaches us something valuable, the discipline of indifference. The Stoic practice is to pause before reacting and quietly ask, is there wisdom here I can use? If the answer is yes, accept it gratefully. Do not resist it out of pride. Growth often comes clothed in discomfort, and the humility to admit fault is a mark of strength, not weakness. But if the answer is no, if the criticism is hollow, born of ignorance or malice, then it should be discarded without bitterness. To hold on to such words is to burden yourself unnecessarily. Marcus Aurelius, who faced endless judgment as Emperor of Rome, practiced this discernment daily. He listened to voices from all sides, even those who opposed him, and weighed their words with calm detachment. If truth was present, he embraced it. If not, he let it pass without anger. In his meditations, he reminds himself that the opinions of others are fleeting, and that only virtue endures. Seen in this light, criticism becomes more than an attack or a verdict. It becomes training. Just as resistance in physical exercise strengthens the body, resistance in the form of judgments strengthens the soul, provided we meet it correctly. Instead of asking, "Why are they attacking me?" the Stoic asks, "What lesson is here for me?" This simple shift transforms the experience from one of pain to one of growth. To live this way requires humility, a quality the Stoics valued deeply. It means being willing to learn even from those who dislike us, to accept that our harshest critics may sometimes reveal truths our friends are too gentle to speak. It also means recognizing that even false judgments have a purpose. They remind us to practice patience, to sharpen our discernment, and to remain anchored in what truly matters. Every judgment, whether wise or foolish, therefore becomes material for practice. In the Stoic mind, nothing is wasted. Each criticism is a chance to strengthen character, to cultivate calm, and to refine virtue. And when viewed this way, even the harshest words lose their sting, for they have been transformed into tools of growth. But to truly benefit from this practice, we must learn to master our emotions in the moment when criticism strikes. For it is often not the words themselves that hurt us, but our unguarded reaction to them. The first impulse is almost always emotional. Anger flares up, demanding retaliation. Shame creeps in, whispering that perhaps the insult is true. Both are natural responses, but the Stoics remind us that feeling an impulse does not mean we must obey it. We cannot always control the first spark, but we can control whether it grows into fire. To master this moment is to practice what the Stoics call the discipline of assent, the choice to let reason, not passion, decide our response. This is where the Stoic pause becomes essential. When judgment comes, breathe. Delay your reaction, even if only for a few seconds. In that brief pause, you create space for wisdom. Instead of striking back or shrinking inward, you give yourself the freedom to choose a different path. Epictetus urged his students not to be carried away by appearances, but to stop and ask whether what they perceived was truly harmful. In the same way, pausing before responding to criticism allows you to see it more clearly, stripped of the heat of emotion. And from that place of calm, you can respond with curiosity rather than defense. Instead of snapping back, you might say, "Can you explain further?" Instead of closing off, you might open the door to understanding. This simple shift disarms hostility and turns the critic into an unintentional teacher of patience. By refusing to mirror aggression, you demonstrate mastery over yourself. The critic may not change, but you will have practiced the higher art of self-control. Still, even with calm responses, another danger lingers: the erosion of self-worth. If we are not careful, repeated criticism can begin to define how we see ourselves. Here, too, the Stoics offer clarity. They remind us that our true worth is not measured by what others think, but by whether we live in accordance with virtue. Courage, justice, temperance, and wisdom, these are the standards of a life well lived. No insult can take them away. Criticism cannot harm a virtuous character. A person who acts with integrity is untouched by the shifting opinions of others. Epictetus went so far as to say, if you wish to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. In other words, you must be willing to appear weak in the eyes of others if it means becoming strong in truth. To live wisely is to accept that misunderstanding, judgment, and even ridicule are inevitable companions. When we place our worth in external voices, we live as prisoners of opinion. But when we anchor it in virtue, we become free. The words of others may still reach us, but they no longer control us. They become echoes, passing sounds in a much larger life, incapable of touching the core of who we are. And so emotional mastery and guarded self-worth walk hand in hand. One keeps us steady in the moment. The other secures our foundation over time. Together they allow us to face criticism with dignity, to stand unshaken, and to transform even the harshest judgment into a practice of inner strength. When we accept that external voices cannot define our worth unless we give them permission, we naturally turn toward practices that help us embody this understanding in daily life. The Stoics, ever practical, offered simple yet profound exercises to transform criticism into a tool for growth. One such exercise is daily reflection. At the end of each day, take a quiet moment with your journal and revisit the criticisms you encountered. Were they harsh, gentle, or subtle? What lesson, however small, can be drawn from them? By writing them down and extracting meaning, you shift criticism from an emotional wound into a stepping stone for self-improvement. Each entry becomes a mirror, not of others' judgments, but of your own willingness to learn. Another practice is the view from above. When harsh words weigh heavily, step back and see yourself not as an isolated figure trapped in the moment, but as part of a vast and ancient universe. From the perspective of centuries, what is a single comment, a fleeting disapproval, or even repeated judgment? They dissolve into insignificance when placed against the immensity of time and space. Criticism, once so sharp, now appears small and passing. The Stoics also encouraged role reversal. Imagine yourself as the critic. What truth might you be trying to reveal? Sometimes what feels like an attack may hide a sliver of truth, a signal towards something we can refine within ourselves. Even when the delivery is unkind, the substance might still carry value. By adopting the critic's perspective, we train our humility, our ability to see ourselves not as flawless beings, but as works in progress. Finally, there is silence. To remain silent in the face of provocation is not weakness, but strength. Choosing not to retaliate, not to match anger with anger or sarcasm with sarcasm, is an act of self-mastery. Silence becomes the shield that guards our peace, the pause that protects our dignity. In that quiet restraint, we demonstrate that our sense of self is anchored deeper than words can reach. Through these practices, criticism reveals its true nature, not as an enemy, but as a hidden ally. Like fire refining gold, judgment shapes and strengthens our character. Without challenge, we grow complacent. With it, we are forced to expand, to clarify, to sharpen. Each piece of criticism offers us one of two gifts: a lesson to be embraced or an opportunity to practice indifference. Either way, it serves us. In this light, criticism ceases to be an obstacle. It becomes a teacher, often disguised, sometimes uncomfortable, yet always useful. When we meet it with calm perspective and humility, we no longer shrink from it. Instead, we walk forward with gratitude, recognizing that every judgment, fair or unfair, can be transformed into strength along the Stoic path. When we begin to see criticism not as an obstacle, but as a teacher, we free ourselves from one of the deepest sources of fear, the fear of judgment. The Stoics understood that freedom is not found in avoiding the opinions of others, but in mastering our response to them. To welcome criticism as training is to turn life itself into a workshop of the soul. Think for a moment, what happens when we no longer dread the sharp edges of judgment? Instead of shrinking away, we stand taller, knowing that every word, whether fair or unfair, can refine our character. Where most see attack, the Stoic sees opportunity. Where others feel defeat, the Stoic feels the weight of training that strengthens resilience. So the question becomes, the next time judgment comes, will you resist it, or will you learn from it? Will you let it pierce you, or will you take it as material for your growth? The choice is always yours. Reflection, humility, silence, and perspective. These are the tools that turn criticism from a burden into a blessing. In the end, true freedom is discovered when external voices lose their power to disturb our inner calm. We are no longer tossed about by the opinions of others. We walk steadily, anchored in virtue, guided by reason and unshaken by noise. Criticism becomes a passing breeze, while our peace remains rooted, deep, and unmoved. So as you step back into the world, carry this reminder with you. Criticism is not a wound, but a form of wisdom. Welcome it as a companion on your path, a reminder that growth is never silent. And as you practice, notice how each moment of judgment becomes less of a weight and more of a gift. If these reflections have spoken to you, I invite you to carry them further. Share your own thoughts below, let others know how you've turned criticism into growth, and join in this practice of building strength together. And if you wish to continue walking this path of calm clarity and resilience, stay connected here. Your presence is part of what makes this journey meaningful.